Hello, Kinaway members, and thank you for joining us for this very special webinar today. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am coming to you all from, and also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are all tuning in from today, and pay respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So quickly before we get today's show on the road, I would like to remind you all that we have a bunch of informative webinars for you guys on various topics, and they're available for you on our Facebook and YouTube channels. So feel free to jump on at any time and check those out, but not before you watch today's webinar, that's for sure. And along with that, we still are offering the usual forms of support for you all. So if you feel the need for assistance or support of any kind, feel free to get in contact with the team here at Kinaway. And also remember 1-800-KINAWAY for wellbeing support with Brendan. Okay, so now that we have all of that out of the way, let's give a warm welcome to our incredible guests today. I thought I would let them introduce themselves to you. So let's start with Michelle.
Thanks, Katani, and I'm so pleased to be here today. And I'm coming to you today from the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I'm also present and emerging. So my name is Michelle Delaire, and I'm the Deputy State Controller of Industry Engagement. I'm working in the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, and basically we work with businesses to try and assist them through the COVID situation. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm not too sure if just the beginning of what you mentioned, it was a little bit quiet. I'm not sure if it was just on my end, but I just thought we've got your audio good now. So if you'd like to just, if what you mentioned in the beginning, if you wanted to repeat, that would be awesome.
Mute.
Oh. That's all good. I'll come back to you, Michelle. For whatever reason, guys. Oh, there you are.
Sorry, technology.
We definitely did do technical checks, but you know how technology is. It likes to mess up right when you need it to work.
Sorry, and I did start saying I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And today I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you for that. We'll cruise down to Scott. Would you like to introduce yourself for people watching?
Sure. Scott McCartney, CEO of Kinaway Chamber of Commerce. A proud Wodjabolic man from Western Victoria, and today I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm on, which is Wurundjeri people, and acknowledgement to their elders past, present, emerging, but also I'd like to acknowledge my elders past, present, emerging. Thank you.
Hey, excellent. And Ylva, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks very much. And hello, everybody. I'm really delighted to join you today. I'm also on Wurundjeri country, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal community members. My role is Executive Director of Small Business Victoria. I'm in the same department that Michelle described, so Jobs, Precincts and Regions. And our job is to support small businesses and grow the opportunity, and particularly during these times where they're a bit challenging, offer additional support to get businesses through so they can thrive on the other side of all of this COVID stuff. Thank you.
Yay. So in today's webinar, we're going to cover some of the funding that's available for all of you guys, and also go through some of the COVIDSafe requirements that are out there for businesses. So we'll go through a bunch of those questions, Kinaway community, but I thought I would throw to Scott because I believe he's got some opening statements for us just to ease us into all of the COVID talk. So I thought I'd throw to you, Scott.
Oh, thanks, Katani. Look, I just wanted to give everyone a bit of an update on why we're doing this today. Obviously, there can be some confusion about what sort of support's out there and complicated and trying to understand whether you qualify or not. And I know even over the last few days, we've had a lot of feedback from you guys out there. So we thought what best to do is get the two big dogs in the various departments. So, it doesn't get any higher than the executive directors. So this is, I think, is really great to have access to these two lovely ladies that can actually go through and talk about what's available out there. And it's never been done before with the Kinaway community that we've had access to high-level executives at government. So I'd like to thank both of you for your time today. It's very generous of you.
Yay. Well, now that we do actually have access to these big dogs, as Scott said, maybe we'll just jump right on in. I know everyone's burning with anticipation, including myself. So I'll start off by asking a couple of questions to you, Ylva. So my first one I've got is, are there grants available specifically for Aboriginal-owned businesses?
Thanks for the question, Katani. At present, there's not a specific grant program open. We had a very successful one earlier in the year that was developed in consultation with Kinaway, and I think that was an excellent initiative. So the First Nation COVID-19 Business Support Fund grant, that did close in March, but at the moment we've taken a lot of really good learnings from that about the benefit of not only having a grant available, but being able to work with a trusted partner like Kinaway. So it does stay very strongly on our radar, and we'll continue to pursue opportunities if we can start something like that again. The current grant programs that are underway are open to the small business sector more broadly. So the Business Costs Assistance Program is a program that provides, acknowledgement that lockdowns have an impact on businesses, and that can mean everything from having to throw out perishable food through to having, rent constraints, or wanting to be able to support your staff with some income support. So that Business Cost Assistance Program, every time there's a lockdown and increased restrictions, there are top-up payments made to the businesses in that program. It is one for businesses that are registered for GST, though, so that typically is a business that's got a turnover above $75,000. For those that are in the licensed hospitality sort of venue space, there are additional payments in that grant stream. And again, each time there's a lockdown, depending on the nature of your licensed venue, there are top-up payments available in that stream as well. If anyone's in the Alpine areas, there's an Alpine support package as well, and that recognises in particular, the impact on the alpine and ski related tourism sector and accommodation sector as well. One of the ones I'd like to point your attention to, not least of all because it closes this Friday, so if you think you're eligible, please do jump onto Business Victoria and have a look at this upcoming one. This is the Small Business COVID Hardship Fund. If you can demonstrate that your business has had a reduction in turnover of 70% across the COVID impact period, there are grants available there, and it's now a $20,000 grant. So that's gone up from, I think, $8,000 it started a few weeks ago, but with the extension of lockdown, the government has continued to increase the amount that's available in that grant stream. That one, you don't have to be in a particular ANZIC class. So most people will be familiar with the idea of an ANZIC class. It's the type of business that you're operating. It's the industry code that you would use for your formal documentation. And they're the ways that we talk about restrictions. Certain ANZIC classes have been able to operate and some have not been able to open. This grant program, it doesn't matter which ANZIC class you're in, you just need to be able to demonstrate that you've been impacted by COVID and have had that 70% reduction in revenue. So it's a much more accessible program for a lot of businesses who have been impacted by COVID. A really good example is, a business that might be in a supply chain where you've lost your main customer because they've been closed. You can technically still operate, but your customer is closed. So it's one that I encourage people to have a look at, but just to be clear, it does close on Friday at 11:59 p.m. So there's still time to get in an application, and the details for that are on business.vic.gov.au, and I'd be happy to post that in the chat afterwards. Another really good program that's open at the moment, if you're looking to digitally transform your business, a lot of businesses have had to go from having a shop front or a physical presence to operating online, whether it's through postage sales or click and collect. So there are 14 digital products available through the Small Business Digital Adaptation Program. Things like Square and Zeno and Shopify, those types of technologies that you might use to be able to have an online shop. You can get a $1,200 rebate from government from the purchase of one of those 14 products. So again, that's had a lot of uptake. We've had 8,000 applications in that grant program, and we've had that now extended to December. But I encourage people to look at it. If that's somewhere where you're at with your business and you're looking to modernise and change the way you're engaging with your customers, there are a lot of digital tools there to help you through. One last one, and I feel like I've talked a lot, and it's for businesses that don't meet those bigger thresholds of GST registration and the $75,000 sort of mark for turnover. Please do consider the Commonwealth Government has a COVID-19 disaster payment. It's a terrible name, but it is there to support businesses that have lost hours. So that can be you as the business owner have lost hours working in your own business, but also importantly, your employees can apply for it as well. And depending on how many hours you've lost, I think the threshold is 20 hours of work lost. There's one payment, and that's $750 a week. If it's less than 20 hours a week lost, it's more like $450 a week. There were some issues at the beginning of that program with anyone who had an existing Centrelink payment was not eligible, and the Commonwealth Government have responded to feedback around that and adjusted it. So there is still a payment. If you're receiving a parenting payment, for example, you are now still eligible for a payment under the COVID-19 disaster payment. My understanding is it's pretty easy to apply for and pretty direct in terms of, not a lot of time until you start receiving the payment. So if you're having that cash flow issue and you and your employees require sort of more immediate assistance, that's definitely a good one to go for. If you call the Business Victoria hotline, it's 132215. And press 3 for micro business concierge. If you're a micro business, sole trader, 1 or 2 employees, you can talk to someone on the Business Victoria dedicated micro business section, and they can guide you through the application process for that Commonwealth grant as well. So I'll pop some info in the chat as well, but there's a couple of good tips there, I think, for sort of immediate support.
Yeah,
thanks,
excellent.
Katani.
No, thank you. I learned a little bit myself there. I know some people who were trying to apply, and Centrelink definitely, that whole thing got in the way. So that's excellent to know. Also, for you guys watching, I have put the links in the description of this video. And once we've finished, I'll make sure to send out an email for you all and just make it super available for you. So we'll be able to help you in that way. But my next question, it's interesting because there are so many grants when you go onto the website. And so my question is, how is there a way that people can easily find out what grants they're eligible for?
Yes. So it can be confusing, and please don't give up if you go on the site of Business Victoria and you start looking at the first couple of grants and you feel like that one's not for me, that one's not for me. There is a grant finder. You can look on the Business Victoria website and you can see Metro versus Regional, for example. There are different grants depending on where you're located. The really great way to stay up to date with new grants as they're announced is the Business Victoria newsletter. It generally comes out every fortnight, but at the moment, because there's so much information to share, we are sending it out more like once a week. And that will clearly give a little, breakdown of any new grants that are announced. And so that's a really good way to stay on top of it all as well. There's also the Business Victoria phone line. You can ring and have a chat with someone. The micro business concierge, if you're at the smaller end and it's yourself or 1 or 2 employees, you can get them to call you back and have a half-hour session where it's a more leisurely conversation. You don't feel the pressure of feeling like you're talking to someone in a call centre, and you don't feel rushed. They can also step you through all of the grants that are available.
Yeah,
Thanks,
definitely
Katani.
get onto that, you guys. Sometimes, depending on what kind of learner you are, sometimes, speaking to someone just makes it so much clearer. So definitely get onto that. But yeah, my next question's focusing on mental well-being, and I think that's something that here at Kinaway we've been really focusing on during the lockdown, and especially in light of the extension. So yeah, just wanting to ask you if there are any supports available that does focus on mental well-being of business owners.
It's such an important area. I think one of the things I've learned about small business owners is they're used to doing everything themselves, from opening the shop, cleaning the shop, dealing with their employment issues, thinking about supply chain issues, driving to appointments, etc. Small business owners tend to be amazing multitaskers, and they also tend to put everyone first before themselves. And when you're in a really tricky period like we are now, where you've got a lot of business pressure, perhaps financially, perhaps, to do with your business plan, and your sort of strategy is really in trouble, but also looking after your employees. And so we recognised early on in COVID that the mental health and wellbeing of business owners really, really important. And if you look after yourself, you can also better look after your family and your community and your employees. There's a program called Partners in Wellbeing, and it provides, business counselling, financial counselling, and also wellbeing and emotional sort of support. I'm really proud of this one, and it precedes me, so I can't take the credit, but early on in the creation of this program, Barb Cullen, prior to me, did work with Scott and with Kinaway to recognise that we needed a really culturally safe and appropriate way to helping Kinaway members. And one of the real success factors there is having a trusted provider and a dedicated phone line. You call 1-800-Kinaway and you get Brendan, who is probably known to lots of people on the call. I know he's very approachable and has so much respect within the community around Kinaway. So knowing that you can call someone and talk about, this is the challenge I'm having in my business, or this is how I want to support my staff. Sometimes it starts with a conversation around, my finances are really tricky. I don't know how to get through this next month. And then in the course of that conversation, people realise, actually, I need a bit of support for myself so I can get through. So it's a really high value kind of way to kind of have a conversation that might help you to deal with the pressures that everyone's under at the moment. So for Kinaway members, you're lucky. You've got a dedicated person in Brendan. And I know that we're looking at a whole lot of other things, like could we have, a female provider who could work with Brendan as well. Not everyone, wants to talk to a male. You might prefer a female. And that's really great to get that feedback from members so that we can make sure that the service is being effective. For any of your other friends in small business more broadly, Partners in Wellbeing is available to all business owners. They don't get Brendan, but they do get a trained clinician that they can talk to. And we've got some clinicians who are embedded in some industry organisations so that they can provide specific support to other members as well. But I really would recommend Partners in Wellbeing. So it's 1-800-Kinaway. Thanks, Katani.
We need to make you our spokesperson for 1-800-Kinaway. The community.
It's easy to remember.
Yeah, it is. We need to make a little jingle to go along with it, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, seek out those resources, you guys. It's one of those things where the leap of faith, you take that first step and then it's just super worth it. And you always have 1-800-Kinaway, so. But yeah, so I've got one last question for you. I was just wondering if there is other support available for Aboriginal business owners. Just before,
there's one that's sort of a bit hot off the press, which I'd like to give a little promo to, and it's the workshops and mentoring section of small business. So one of the unfortunate things about business disruption is business owners find themselves not being able to do their regular job. One of the great things is they might be able to invest a bit more in themselves and do some training and development if you do have downtime in your schedule. So we've just relaunched our workshops and mentoring program. And the top kind of courses, it looks pretty good. If you go on to Business Victoria and look up workshops and mentoring, I just asked the team this morning what the top courses that we've been getting enrollments in. It's been open for about 2 weeks now. So there's a module, starting your business. There's another one on generating cash flow, pretty important at the moment. Taking your business online. So again, that challenge we talked about, people having to take that step change from doing face-to-face business to doing it in a digital environment. And there's another module called winning government business. So if you're trying to apply for a government tender or, provide services into government, there's a module there about that. It's an online learning system. You can dip in and out of it as it suits you. Some people learn at night, some people learn in the morning, some people love to do it on a Saturday morning. So you can do it according to what suits your schedule. And at the end of it, you get a certificate. These are accredited courses as well. So if that matters to you to kind of be able to say, I'm a business owner and I've also got this accreditation, you get the sort of certificate at the end of the learning as well. These are courses that, we can continue to work with Kinaway to understand what sort of topics your members would like, and we can start putting those into our learning system as well. So that's one I'd encourage people to check out.
Yes, we'll definitely
Thanks.
comment, you guys, so that we can pass this info onto Ylva as well. So yeah, if you've got any suggestions or feedback, get in contact with us and we'll definitely pass that one along. Well, excellent. So that was, a little bit of a chat about the funding that's available to you guys. So, like I said, we've got resources linked in the description of this video. So, and if you want any further support, you've always got us. And I highly encourage you guys to check that out. But now we're going to move on to some of the COVIDSafe requirements that businesses probably should follow. So I actually learned in organizing this webinar, there are definitely some requirements that I didn't realize were, needing to be followed. So I hope you guys learned just as much as I have with the following questions. So I'm going to move over to Michelle. So my first question to you, Michelle, is what are the current COVIDSafe requirements that businesses need to be aware of?
Thanks, Katani. There's quite a lot, isn't there, that people need to be aware of and keep across. So obviously at the moment we're in a lockdown 6, and so there's limits on who can be trading. So it's essential retail only can be open. Hospitality is only open for click and collect, takeaway. And businesses need to be making every effort to try and avoid interaction between people. Mask wearing, absolutely critical in the workplace whenever you're leaving the home. So that's a really important one for businesses to be aware of. And very importantly, if you can work from home, you must work from home. And the reason all these rules are so important is because the virus only travels with people and it only transmits person to person. So the more we can, as a state, limit the movement of people at the moment, the more we can limit the spread of the virus. So it's really, really important, although we do understand it has a huge impact on people's lives and their businesses. And the requirements are right across the state at the moment, so Melbourne and right across Victoria. So there's some of the main restrictions. There are some industries with very specific rules, like in the meat industry or construction, but people can go and check the website to see those, since there are some limits on staffing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, we always try to keep up with posting and letting everyone know what those requirements are. But, it's good to be reminded. We've been through 100 million lockdowns, so I feel like everybody's pretty aware of them. But, it's always good to remember because, it's about keeping each other safe and ourselves. But excellent. So something I think would be excellent to talk about is COVIDSafe plans. So this is a bit of a double whammy question, but what is a COVIDSafe plan, and do all businesses need to have a COVIDSafe plan?
So they're really important questions, Katani. Firstly, every business must have a COVIDSafe plan. It's actually critical, and that plan is your map to keep your community safe. to keep your family safe and to keep communities across Victoria safe. The plan is how you're going to manage a business in a way that minimises any risk from COVID, and how you're going to keep your customers, your workers, and all of their family groups and community groups safe. So it has number of really specific things that it has to contain, but I might start by talking about the QR code. So one of the things your plan will get you to think about is, how are you going to keep track of everyone who comes on site? So anyone who comes, if you've got a cafe, anyone who's coming to get a takeaway coffee, if you've got a small manufacturing business that's making essential goods, how are you tracking every single worker? And you need to have this QR code. So you can get it through the government website, coronavirus.vic.gov.au. I'm sure that's in your links, Katani, that you've sent out.
Yeah.
And that code gets printed out, posted up, and the business needs to be making sure that everyone who comes is asked to sign in, because that is how we keep track of who was where. And if we find out later, if the health department finds out that someone has been in that cafe, was in the takeaway queue, and they had COVID and they were infectious, then straight away the health department can contact everyone who scanned in on that day and get them a message to get tested and to isolate at home. And that's the way to contain the spread. So it's so important to be using those codes and using them every single time. And you would have seen the ads, scan in everywhere every time. There's a really good reason for it. It's about stopping the spread and being able to identify people who might have been exposed and, make sure they're not visiting, the Aboriginal community, that they're not moving around and passing it on.
Yeah,
so that's why the plan's important. That's just one piece.
Yeah. No, I was just about to chime in. I think that is super important, especially when you're at Woolies or Coles, you guys. My roommate was messaged because she did sign in, and someone there was positive, and we went through that whole process, and it was just really, it's such a good feeling being safe and, updated about those things. So yeah, 100% sign in every time. Awesome. So you mentioned the QR code, but were there any other examples of things within a COVIDSafe plan that are worth mentioning? We do have links, you guys, to find out how to have, or what your COVIDSafe plan should be, but we'll just talk about some of the things that's inside that plan.
So the business needs to look at, there's 6 areas, and every business owner needs to make sure they've actually documented, written down in a form, how they're going to deal with those 6 things. So there's physical distancing. So how will you make sure you don't have too many people together in one space? Obviously, if your shop's closed now, that's for when you reopen, but that's really important. Mask wearing, and that's about, how am I going to train my staff? Who's in charge of making sure that the masks are there, that if they're dirty or wet, they're changed? There's processes, and you need to identify whose job it is to keep the stock high and make sure people are wearing them, and ask people to wear them. Cleaning, so the high-touch surfaces, they need to be cleaned twice a day. Who's in charge of that? Who's making sure the cleaning supplies are there? That's really important. Keeping records, we've talked about the QR codes. Trying to limit people spending time in enclosed spaces. So if you do have things that go on indoors, can the windows be opened? Can some of those interactions moved outside? It's much, much safer outside than having people in a small area for any period of time. And one we call worker bubbles, and worker bubbles is really about, can you split your workers up a bit? Obviously, in a small business, you can't. But if you've got people who might work half the week and others who maybe work Friday and the weekend, you could make it so that they don't overlap. Because if someone does come in who's positive, half your workforce might have to actually stay home for 14 days, but you would then have other people who are A, protected, aren't exposed to the virus, but B, could keep your business running. So that's really important. And within this plan is the really key bit around your planning for if you do have a case in the workforce. So you do need to tell the health department, and you do need to tell WorkSafe. That's quite important so they can track what's happening. But who's going to do that? Who's going to make sure the workers know about the funding they can get, which Ylva was speaking about earlier? Who's going to organise the cleaning? How are you going to communicate to your customers to have everything ready? You never want the case to come in, but if it does, you want to be ready that you've got the list of your workers, your key clients, and you can text them at 10 o'clock at night. We've just heard Mary in the shop was positive. You all will probably need to go and test and isolate, and we can start that action at night rather than when they've been out or had a chat or been to the bakery in the morning. So that plan, which is embedded within the COVIDSafe plan, is a really, really important piece. So that sort of covers what's in it. So hopefully that gives people an idea of the things they need to think about, write down, but actually put in place.
Yeah, 100%. We've got links down there with templates for your COVID-safe plan, you guys. And yeah, super important stuff, because I think at the end of the day, it's just about keeping each other safe. You never know if people at home are, immune compromised, things like that. So you just want to kind of do it for everybody else and yourself. So, but speaking of COVID-safe plan, how often should businesses be updating the plan?
So whenever something changes. So if you're operating in a different way and someone else is now in charge of masks or cleaning or the response, if there's a case, then you want to update it. When restrictions change, so mask rules went away, that was great, wasn't it? But the mask rules came back, so you need to update that. And I should mention, when I said before about letting the health department know about a case, all of this information is so confidential, and it's kept really only for the health contact tracing teams to see. So there's no, none of this information is going to be public. They always protect the identity of individuals. That's very, very important. And it's really about making sure people get the supports and treatment that if they do need it. So that's a really important aspect. But when there's change, when there's new information or new requirements, that's when the business should say, right, better look at my plan. Oh yeah, we're a bit out of date on this one. Fix it up, because it has to be up to date and accurate, and all your staff need to know it's there. So they need to know where it is, they need to understand it and really live it. That's what it's about.
Yeah, it's our lockdown Bible, you guys. This next question I found really interesting, actually, talking with your team, but and I think it'd be awesome for the community to know, but if you're a business that operates from home or a residential address, do they need a COVID-safe plan?
Absolutely, because we still need to make sure the right things are happening, whether it's a big office, a tiny office, or it's you're coming from your living room table. You need that plan so that it'll be different. It might be shorter and it might not, it might not have the exact same content, but you still do need a plan. It's a requirement for all businesses. And that plan might say, actually, we're going to ensure all our staff get vaccinated as well, because we think that's a fantastic way to keep people safe. So that's another really good thing for businesses to be talking to their staff about, or even maybe their customers, how important, how safe the vaccines are and how important that is to protect people.
Yeah. I believe all of the Kinaway staff are vaccinated. So we like to lead by example, don't we, Scott? So what might happen if a business has some gaps in the COVID-safe requirements? Is there a place they can go for help?
There's lots of places. I've got a team. So Sam Smith and Clancy Wright in my team, they actually have been contacting many of your members, and when we're allowed to leave Melbourne, they will do visits as well, and they can help with the plan. The business hotline that Ylva mentioned before, so that was 132215, they can help with your plan. There's resources on the coronavirus website that can help with the plan. But if people really have a problem, it's a great idea, and they can reach in through Kinaway directly, and our team can assist. So there's lots of resources. It's all about making sure people understand it, and that the right controls are there. So if there's a little bit of a gap, our first response is, how do we help you put the right things in place?
Yeah. I highly recommend reaching out to Sam and Clancy. They are my faves. I think I've got some new friends, Michelle, from your team. So yes, definitely reach out to those guys, Kinaway community. So I think I actually have come to my last question for you, Michelle. And that is, with the health directions changing and as we move in and out of lockdowns, what can businesses do to avoid confusion and to keep up to date with the latest requirements?
Yeah, so there are lots of sources, but some of them are easier and some of them are a little bit harder. So obviously there's the press information that comes out daily. The website is kept up to date as soon as we can. So if you want to drill down into the detail for a specific sector, and there's frequently asked questions, there's a lot of information embedded in that website, and we can help you with links about, can this particular type of business operate and what are the requirements. But the simplest thing is really we have a lot of information in the department every time something changes, and maybe the easiest thing is that we make sure we're always supplying it through to Kinaway to get out to members, so that you're not having to go hunt for it. It will arrive in your inbox to say, if there's changes to requirements, a density requirement, or which business can open and which can't, or who's a permitted worker, because right now only permitted workers with a permit are allowed to go into work. If any of that changes, it's much easier if we can get it to you. So I think that's something we can look at, doing getting information out to you to distribute. So hopefully we can make that work and make it easier.
Yes. Yeah, we like to push that information around on social media and through email. So yeah, and even if you guys want it to just one-on-one chat, you can always get in contact with the Kinaway team, and we'll be able to help you with our resources from the lovely Michelle and the lovely Ylva. Well, excellent. So that really draws this awesome webinar to a close, you guys. But before we do, I thought I would just like to give Scott a little moment to have some closing words. He's looking quite stern there in the corner and looks like he would like a little bit of spotlight. So let's throw it over to him.
No, that's unfair, Katani. No, look, I just wanted to thank Michelle and Ylva for coming along. I think, again, Kinaway's got an amazing relationship with government. Government's enabled us to do so much through COVID to support Aboriginal businesses, from the First Peoples Business Support Fund, which we lobbied very heavily with, and government gave $10,000 grants. So I think it was about 130 Kinaway members. So we really do enjoy having this really close relationship where, if I've got any problems, I can go to the government team leaders all the time, and they listen to us. And it's not certainly just lip service. And when we talked about some of the confusion around the grants, these guys offered straight up, and it's not very often you get, as I mentioned before, the big dogs being able to come along and give the message. But it shows you the importance of that relationship that government has with us. And just remember, guys, there's a link, I think, in the chat as well, that if you do want to talk to one of the Kinaway team, just send an inquiry through that link there, and we'll certainly allocate it out to one of the guys in the team or ladies that can go through and help you through applying for some of these grants, or understanding whether you do apply, which sometimes can be a little bit confusion. So again, thank you very much, and just all the Kinaway community out there. You do see emails from us all the time and SMSs, and we do send them deliberately just so you're up to date with all the latest stuff. And Barb Cullen in particular in the response team, she will send me an update just as it's dropped, whether it's on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday, and we get it out to our members straight on emails, and then we send a text message, and then we get it on the social media, and we hope we don't miss anyone. But again, thanks for your time today, ladies. This is, again, like I said, another example of the seriousness of COVID and how much government is really committed to supporting Indigenous businesses.
Yay.
Thanks
Excellent.
for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Scott pretty much stole my thunder there. I was going to do a nice heartfelt thank you, but no, it's been excellent. And I love learning, and I'm glad that we get the opportunity to sort of, share this, you guys, as a resource as well for our community. So thank you from me and from them as well. And thank you all to those watching. Thank you, Kinaway community, for joining us for this afternoon's discussion. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you feel more informed and supported. Like I said, links are in the description of this video, but anything mentioned, I will push around in an email and on socials, so keep an eye out for that. And again, if you'd like to catch up on other amazing, incredible webinars like today's one, you can jump on our Facebook and YouTube channels, and they are all archived there. And last but definitely not least, I just want to remind you all about 1-800-Kinaway, which is wellbeing support for all of you and for your families. And that's with Brendan Heat. So make sure to give that number a bell if you feel like you need that type of support. But thank you all. Thank you, Michelle, Ylva, and Scott for joining me. And thank you, community. I hope you have a safe lockdown. Yay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.